Alright. Anyway, I was walking and we were just casually talking, and I suddenly remembered a story Swamiji told me. You may have heard it, but some of you may not. He used to love to explore the Himalayas himself. He sometimes would go out for a month because he knew there was a routine. You could get away with it. Just put on ochre. You're a natural, then. Because the villages would come out and they'd want your blessing. And they'd come out and offer you sabji, rice, and dal as you'd walk through. So you didn't have to worry about food. And the mountain water is excellent and it's full of minerals. Because it comes from the snow, washing down the rocks. And so he'd go out and he'd explore. You've got the largest train of mountains in the world, over 1,200 miles long. So it's quite a bit of a territory cover. So he'd go out for a month or so, and he'd find a cave or someplace where he could sleep at night. And one day he was walking up, and at different levels in the Himalayas, you sometimes can walk through a crevice, and there's a large pond, like you might find here, or even larger. Maybe not the size of that lake behind the pond, but let's say it's 5 times that pond. He thought, well, gee, look at this. He looked around, and over on the side, he saw something like a raft, a kayak or something, and he said, I'm going to go out. So he grabbed a plank, and he just paddled himself out to the middle. He just wanted to, contemplate. He's out there looking around, and he hears a splash behind him. Whoa! He turns around, and guess what it was?
Loch Ness Monster.
Mermaid. A
A
mermaid.
mermaid.
A real mermaid.
A real mermaid. He was astonished, he told me. He looked at her, and she smiled at him. And he was so dumbfounded he didn't say anything. He just looked at her. She smiled, and turned, ducked, and disappeared.
Wow.
So, now that awakened in him, I thought, what other creatures are in this mountain that nobody knows about? So he told his master he was going to go hunt for the, guess who?
Yeti.
The Yeti. And his master says, don't you dare. Leave him alone. Everybody said, he minds his own business. He doesn't bother anybody. I don't want you going after him. Oh, okay.
Wow.
So be careful when you're walking in the woods. Ask permission first. Swamiji liked to play tricks on me too. He knew I had an urge, I wanted to go to his cave. Maybe spend a week, or 2. Just to see if I could put up with the routine, and maybe I could learn some siddhis. Does everybody know what a siddhi is?
No.
Okay. S-I-D-D-H-I, or S. It really means a kind of accomplishment, but it tends to get narrowed down to what you might call certain special powers that open up, like mind reading or instant healing, And of course, that's what I wanted to learn. All those, I wanted to become invisible then too, so I wouldn't have to walk through the airport inspection. I'd just go right to the plane. Anyway, fascination for doing things. He said, "Just, why don't you go through a little training?" I said, "Okay." You're to sleep on a linoleum floor. Oh, that doesn't sound too exciting, but I mean, 8 years I slept on a linoleum floor. And do you know what it wound up being? I can sleep anywhere. Rocks, logs, doesn't bother me. It's amazing what you get the body to relax in. I still don't know why he wanted me to do that, but
So you could go to that cave and sleep,
that's right.
but you didn't get there yet.
No. Do you know it's 68 degrees in that cave all the time? Can you imagine that? It's steady 68. Well, what do they use for light? Wait till you hear this. There's a special mineral in the region of the cave. It's in rock form, and occasionally the monks will go out and gather the rocks, and then they start grinding it till they get it to a fine powder. And they collect the powder, and they build little crevices in the hallways, the corridors of the cave, and they pour this in and light it. And it's like a burning fuse. It gives off light, and it eliminates all the bugs in the region, so they won't bother you while you're in the cave doing your practice.
Wow.
I said, will you bring some of that back for me sometime? I want to try it out. He never did.
Yeah, it burns for a long time?
Yeah, it just burns down, huh?
Wow.
But it burns a long time. It's a very slow burner, but it gives off, he said, a lot of light.
Wow.
I had heard, stories, what I would say the Eastern comparable concept to the West notion of fairies. You all know the fairies. All right. And the word deva means bright being. And that's kind of a literal, concrete, empirical designation. It's seeable. That's what I would put it. In 1973, in front of the Ganges and Swamiji's ashram, he has a porch up on the second floor outside his bedroom. And he often likes to sit up there. And he invited Mama, who was the name for our first chairwoman of the Himalayan Institute, 1973. And the two of them were just chatting out there and having chai. It was about 9 o'clock. And he's less than 100 yards from the Ganges. And this period of the Ganges, well, the picture's in the IHT. You see him sitting there in meditation? That's where it is, right there. And that Ganges is maybe 100 yards wide. It's very narrow. You could easily swim it. So Mama and Swamiji are chatting, and Mama looks out, and all of a sudden she sees what looks like strange, translucent beach balls floating from the trees across the Ganges towards the center of the water, just back and forth. Maybe 4 feet in diameter. Or maybe 2 feet in diameter, be better. And they're partially transparent and translucent. And Swami's just chatting, and she's, Swami, look, what? Look at those 3 things. Yeah, what about it? He always was, very quick like that. Well, what are they? Well, they're Davis. As if you should know that, He'd love to do that, people. Well, what are they doing? Well, they're thirsty. And they came and they bounced on the water. So, they're thirsty? Well, what are they? They're spirits. Really? Oh yeah, they come here all the time. They like to look at people. Do they? Oh yeah, they can communicate with you if you're in the right mood. Oh, will you teach me? I'll think about it. And they vanished. Now let's kick that up to about, 15 years ago. I'm over in India one night. Davies with an American crowd. There's about 14 of us. And there's a town 12 miles north or south of Swamiji's ashram called Hardwar. And they were going to do a fire ceremony, the clanging, floating and all that. And I've done it, and I said, if you've seen one, you've seen them all. I know all this clanging. So I told him, you go, I'm gonna just stay here and amuse myself. Okay. And Swamiji said, yeah, you go. The bus driver knows how to get you there. So Swamiji went up to his apartment, and I just walked down the Ganges. It was about 9 o'clock again. And I'm about 100 meters from Swamiji's apartment. And I'm sitting there, just gazing out across the Ganges and thinking, oh, all the tigers over there and the elephants. And wonder if I'll see any of them. And then I thought, boy, I remember Mama had an experience here. This has really happened. I suddenly thought of Mama's experience on Swamiji's porch. And guess what happens all of a sudden? Whoosh! Right in front of me. Out on the Ganges. A deva. Single. Obviously female. Well, I mean, I'm so taken aback, and I want to be polite. I don't want to scare her away. I said, well, how do you do? My name is, and I'm so pleased you came to visit me. I was really trying to turn on the charm, you know, because they didn't want her to move. I wanted to explore this experience. You know, I'm trying to keep my heart down to a normal beat. And I said, well, I'm so glad you're here. And would you mind if I asked or make some inquiries? Would you care to move over to the left a little? Oh my God. I had goosebumps. Would you go to the right? I was thinking, how does she know what I'm thinking this and that, you know. Would you move up? Would you move down? Would you just dance around at your own, you know, wow, sing. I'm ready to faint. And suddenly she stops, and I can tell she's just looking at me and says, did you enjoy this? I said, I did. See you around, Jess. Bench.
Wow.
Now wait, I said, did I imagine this? Did I project this because I want it so badly? You know, I'm always got to be self-critical. I'm going to go talk to Swami. So I run upstairs. I said, hey, Swami, because the gang hadn't come back yet. I had something happen out there. What? I think I saw David. You did. How do you know? I was watching you too. You were standing up on it, looking down at me and seeing what was going on. Oh my God. He says, yes. Hey, this one happened to like you. Really? Yeah? Who knows? You behaved. Maybe you'll even see her again. Okay, Swami. Now they guard Swamiji, I found out. And you do not want to cross Swamiji if they're in the area because they have the power to hurt you. I'll give you a story. It's not a very nice story, but I just want to explain. When we were building Glenview, way back, Swamiji went to India because he wanted to see how well we could do on our own. And the man who was eagerly, almost lustfully, wanting to run the institute was a Methodist minister, Larry Bolden. Very bright guy, but really a driver. Right? And I thought, you want it too badly. Anyway, so he was put in charge. Mama Mama and her brothers owned a restaurant on the south side of Chicago in an Irish neighborhood. I've been there, I knew the brothers, nice guys. And she had to be there because she just had that charm and everybody used to come to want to talk to Mama. So she couldn't run the institute every day, so she wanted somebody that had to be a working manager. So she offered it to Larry. I was teaching a little at the time. And I didn't particularly want it. So Larry was old. And he was doing part-time chaplain work at the University of Chicago, which is the biggest educational institute in Chicago. It's the prestigious, it's the Harvard of the Midwest. Anyway, so, oh boy, he's swaggering now. He's telling everybody, I'm gonna be the, I used to just sit there and watch him, okay. So one day he gets called in by the board director of the Methodist Church, of which he's a member. And they say to Larry, Larry, we've seen your work, we're very proud of you. We'd like to offer you the full chaplaincy at the University of Chicago, which would give him access to any degree free for himself and his family. It's an exceedingly prestigious and wealthy position. So you can imagine how he felt. Oh boy. However, Larry, here comes the kicker. We understand you're involved with this yoga institute? He said, yes. Well, you know, that might not look too good on your resume. I mean, if you're a Christian minister, you know, here we go again with this one. Look at the dilemma Larry's in. He can't have them both. Which one is he going to take? He takes the chaplaincy, and he walks out on Mama, leaving her right in the lurch. So who gets a phone call late at night? Justin, you gotta help me. What is it? Oh no. Okay, I'll help. I'll come over there every day after I've finished my classes. So that's what I did. I didn't get much sleep for a lot of months. I worked in the night because I had a, you know, I'm not the greatest administrator. And so here I am, and we were behind in paying bills. So I used to call up one guy and make, you know, oh yeah, the bill's on its way. I had my fingers crossed, you know, and things like that. Meaning, it's on its way in about a month. But I didn't add that last part, you know. Yeah, don't worry, Tom. Yes, because I had to keep paying the guys who were building the institute. Otherwise, they would quit. We'd be in the lurch. Huh? So they got the money first. And Mama explained to me that we got to pay them first. Okay. So we're trying to have classes and get some money in and so on. And then it happened. I had to get Davy in. So Davy became my secretary. We had no heat in the institute, and this is a Chicago winter. You do not want to be in a Chicago winter. They're better than St. Paul's. So Davy used to bundle up with a parka. And she wore mittens that had fingertips cut out so she could run the, what was it called?
Typewriter?
Huh?
Typewriter?
Yeah, what was it? The
Typeset.
IBM.
Oh,
You know, with the moving ball.
Is that the Select-Matic?
The Select one, yeah, the Select. And she could fly at 120 words a minute. So she was doing that, you know, coughing, getting chide down every, and I'm running around trying to keep up. And Joe was our electrician. Joe's ambition in the world was to eliminate the universe. And he wanted to put a light every 2 feet. And he used to pull him back, Joe. He had so many lights in one hallway, you could perform surgery. I said, Joe, easy. This is, we don't need that much light. But just, it'll be so beautiful. I know it'll be beautiful, Joe, but just calm down a little. So I had a lot of fun learning the hard way. Anyway, all of a sudden, Teresa comes down with a terrible cough. And Joe sees her, and he runs over and he gets his flask. And he says, Teresa, here, take this. This was Swamiji's recipe. Oh, okay. She takes it. Cough goes away. And I looked, that's not possible. It just cleared instantly. What's in that stuff? I didn't, oh no, I don't want to. And she said to Davy and me, said, if you have any coughing issues, it's always here. Okay. So we're working, and every now and then somebody might come down a little cold. Joe would run over and give that cold advantage. And this got my curiosity naturally. What's so special about that? Because Joe makes it every night, and Joe's not particularly, genius level. So one day I get down, because it's finally getting to me, doing 2 jobs. He says, here, Just, have a, and I drank it. Oh my God, it was tilk. This is Swamiji's special chai. It's called tilk. Use honey or maple syrup. I said, Joe, what's in this stuff? Oh my God. He said, Justin, anytime you take it too. Just help yourself. I leave it here all the time. Okay. I didn't want to abuse it. I respected it, so I didn't. So one day, I needed, I got to have my daily shot. It's like my mocha today, see. So I poured it, and all of a sudden it's empty. And I felt guilty. I took the last part. What if somebody needs it? And oh, shoot. And somebody says, hey, O'Brien, there's a phone call for you. Oh, okay. And I close it. And I run. And something tells me, I put sawdust around the bottom. So if it gets moved, I'm becoming, the LSI now. Life scene investigator. I got it. So I run, get my call, and I'm clocking myself. How long am I on? Less than 2 minutes. I run back. I opened it up. Steam's coming out. He said, that was empty. Less than 2 minutes ago. It's filled to the brim. Joe, come here. Come on, tell me. You're not getting home tonight. I want to know what's going on in that flask. He says, oh, all right, but you can't tell me. I won't. When Swamiji was leaving, he handed me the flask. And it was already full. And he told me, Joe, if anybody gets ill on the job, give them some of this. It'll be good for them. It has a universal flavor of attraction, so everybody will love it. Okay, but when it's empty, don't wash it. Bring it home, and each night, just lay it on the sink in your kitchen and leave it alone. The next morning, it was filled. Okay, what's sweet?
I have a little story, if you want. When I used to work for Swamiji, and I was one of his secretaries, and I did a lot of typing, because I would typeset all the books and magazines and things that we made. So Swamiji used to call me Teresa, and then he heard someone call me Terry, and he thought that was good. So he said, how about, what? Tree? No. He started to call me Tessa.
Tessa, right.
So for many years, I was Tessa Typeset. Tessa Typeset. And people used to come in and say, Swamiji's talking about this person on the phone, that Tessa Typeset. Do you know who that is? So I put up with it for a very long time. And then when Swamiji was on his final trip to India, he said, you don't have to be Tessa Typeset anymore. And I said, what is my name now? And he said, it's the Blessed Goddess Devi.
Thank you.
So,
Now I gotta add one more, onto that footnote. She got to know that Selectric so well, get this, Nick, IBM salesman would come in and ask her questions.
Oh. Wow.
I mean, she was that good at it.
Wow.
She knew how to make it do things it wasn't supposed to do. She's like you are with a laptop, okay? She was so good. I was amazed. One last point about the flask, and then I'll tell you about the Davis.
Okay, thank you.
So now that I knew the secret of the tilk, I respected it. I only took a little each day from my stay well. And I remember it was in March. Swamiji had left early in the fall. And we were coming along quite well. And I was pouring it, and I poured it out fully, and it slipped out of my hand. Hit the concrete, and there was a glass encasing, and it shattered. Instantly, out of my mouth came, Swamiji's coming. Guess who shows up the next day? And as he walks in, I said, Swam, I like your tilk. He just laughed. So, while we were building Glenview, a husband of one of the students who was in the contracting business said, let me help you out. I can get you discounts through my company, and I'll get them for you. So he bought the electrical equipment, he bought the lumber, the nails, the connections, whatever, everything we needed. What I didn't know is he was stealing the money. Now, put that aside. I was, barnstorming with Swamiji. I said, we got a lot of help, Swamiji. Joe, wanted to illuminate the world, and we kind of constrained him. And then we had Sam over here who got us all kinds of discounts, and Swami didn't say anything. About 6 months later, I find out that Sam, who had been getting us the discounts, loved to ride a bike. And he got hit by a car and became paraplegic. And I went to Swamiji with a little concern. I said, Swamiji, how could this happen? He helped us. He says, you don't know. He was cheating us. Yeah, but I know you wouldn't do this. No, the Davis did it.
Oh, wow.
Because he was offending me and all your people. Twice I've heard stories what the Davis have done because people have tried to cross Swamiji seriously. So be careful. I've got the Davis on
I
my
was just
side.
going to ask you if you have Davis protecting you.
They protect you people too, all of you. You're in the tradition. Anyway, the hospital Swamiji built way up north. They said it was impossible. He said, that's good. I always start with impossibles. The absolutely, ridiculous takes me a little longer, but impossible I can do. So he managed to get all the steel girders to this 300-acre shrubbery full of cobras and all kinds of prickly plants. And he turned it into a medical city. Now, I was visiting him, and he was so proud. He says, come on, Jess, I want to take you. And he jumped into his jogging suit and said, come on. So he and I walked off. Everybody's way behind us. And he says, look here. See, it took me 3 months out. Look here. And he was so proud. Oh, really? And we came to the corner, and I said, hey, Swan, what happened here? Oh, God, I got to curse them, the workers. Some won't even steal from me, but I got to get them to work on this. So the only thing was up in this one corner, and it was in a very special corner because if you drove into the hospital, you have to go by this corner. He wanted it built, and all they had up was the scaffolding, the 2x4s and so on. And that was it. And none of the sheeting was up or anything like that. I said, oh, that's too bad, Swan. Yeah. We'll take care of it. So, that's at 5 o'clock. Jump now to morning. I stayed in a small lodge-like that was built on the ground about a half mile from this corner. And I was gonna come down and again, past the corner, go to the hospital to see Swamiji, because that's where he would have been in the morning. He told me he'd be there, okay. So I'm strolling down and I come to the corner, it's built. I said, this is not possible, because Indians do not work after dusk. That's the rule in India, at least in the northern part. I went up and inspected. The sheeting was up, the interior was built. It's all built. That was not possible. Because this was what, less than 8 hours later, or maybe 12. So I go to Swami, come on, what's going on? Okay, Jess, the Davids did it. Really? Yeah, they were working all night long for me. I asked them to. I would have loved to sit there and watch this mysterious stuff.
Exactly.
Can you imagine?
Nailing, and there's nobody there doing it, and it's all being moved through the air, huh? But that's what they did it, because he knew nobody'd be around to see it, so he had it built. Last, there's a secret about the hospital that not even 1% people know. You're about to find out. The architectural design of the hospital is what is called a yantra. The yantra is the visual manifestation of a mantra. Because in this universe, sound and vision go together all the time. Any sound, even you're singing, you're yawning, you're belching, has a visual structure. Yogis can see it. So that vibration of the sound can take a visual form. Oh, you got it?
Mhm.
And any visual form has a sound. So, they complement. Huh? They're the same thing, but two different perspectives. That's what Swamiji does. He decides, in the very center, he divides the hospital down the middle, and on one side he puts all the medical performance, the action. This is where we take care of the patients. We cross the road, it's a double strip with a centerpiece. We go to the other side. This is where we teach. This is where all the theoretical that justifies the practical. So he keeps the theoretical and the practical together. Notice the union again. Now you know what yoga means. But then he really pulls off something. He decides to connect them with chakras. Literal chakras. This is what nobody knows. Nobody. Not even the doctors at the hospital. So one day, I'm looking at this place and I'm thinking, somehow something's stirring in me, and I'm looking at the architecture. And I'm standing in the center, in the street, which is the center part. And here you have these two like circles. Huh? Here's where the medical is. Here's where the teaching is. And I'm looking. Something's stirring in me, and suddenly Chandra sees me. Hey, Just, come on. Let's go have some chai. Okay. She says, I told her I'm fascinated. There's something going on. He says, yes, there is. And she says, I'm going to show you. Swami showed me. And he didn't show anybody else, but I'm going to show you. Okay, come on with me. She took my hand. She was a lovely woman. So we marched into the entrance of the hospital. Okay? And suddenly I felt energy. Whoa. Okay, you got it. She said, the moment people come here, they start healing. You don't wait till you get to the operation room. you start right here. But it's only one level here. It's to relax you, release some of the tensions. Because that would get in the way of healing, right? Okay. So she walked me. She said, here, I'm going to take you to where, what is known as the preparation room for the operation. Another, it's a little more intense, isn't it? I said, you sure it is? Wow, okay. So we kept moving. I thought, my God, this is exciting. She took me then to the operation room, and I thought I'd explode. People get cured overnight in that hospital. They brought in a man whose body was 75% covered in burns. Go on in 24 hours. All the flesh healed. Hang on, then she said, let me take you now to the after, where they have to rest. It was a calm energy. Oh, after all the excitement I felt almost vibrating in the operation room, then I felt that. Holy smoke. She had a big grin on her face. Isn't this interesting? I said, sure is. She said, nobody knows it. I said, wow. But they feel it. Yep, okay. She said, now, one last point. This is this side of the yantra. Let's go to the other side. Then the fun started. Oh my God. We crossed the middle, and then we got to where the street is, which leads up about 40 yards to the entrance, series of stairs. But to get from that point, the street curb, to the stairs, you walk through a sidewalk. I think it's about 12 feet wide. But built into the cement are geometrical patterns. Guess what they are?
Sri Lanka. Yeah.
They're all your chakras.
Chakras.
You start walking from the mula, right at the bottom, and you feel it move. Oh my God. You move to the next figure, you feel that one move. You go to the middle, oh my God. Huh? Madhipurna. Zoom! Then the heart just starts palpitating right away. Throat, and finally here at the doorstep. And you know, I watch people, they just walk back and forth. Nobody feels a thing. And all the energy is there.
What city is the hospital in? Jolly Grant.
Jolly Grant, north of Rishikesh, huh? So I said, no, I'm floating by now. So I walk up the stairs, and I open up this huge door to walk inside, and it's built like a spire. And I'm just drawn to the center, and I almost feel like I'm going to take off. It's just like, and you just stand in the center. Down that way is the classroom, down that way is classrooms, all different classrooms. You're just standing in the center. Holy smoke. All I want to do is walk up and down that cycle for an hour. Yeah, that's what's over there. He refused, absolutely refused to allow them to put a statue up. He says, I don't want that. Put Buddha up, the symbol of meditation. That's what this is all about. I don't want to be remembered that way.
You mean a statue of him?
A statue of him, right? He told me that.
I think they have one now.
And they're going against his orders. But they will.
The Davis are, they'll be there.
They'll redecorate.
So, what else?
Yeah, that's so phenomenal.
It is, you know, but if you're not receptive, nothing will happen, you know, the whole point again. Another story. At Summit, my old house, you know this one. We used to have a special outdoor picnic, remember on the grass? Jeff used to bring water all the time, and that. Was Guru Purnima?
Yeah.
That was it. We
July.
honor the tradition, we take a day on the tradition. Swami used to do that all the time. So picture yourself back at my house, Jim, out in the front, on the grass. We got the blankets down. It's potluck. We're walking around and I'm just kind of casing, and suddenly I smell sandalwood. I said, no, wait a minute. That's Swamiji's odor. Now, let me explain it. When you get to a certain level of meditation, you can release part of the power of the bottom chakra, which is an odor. You can choose the odor which will be your signature. Swamiji chose sandalwood. His master chose jasmine. And so I'm going, am I imagining this? Maynard comes by. He says, hey, Just, do you smell what I do? Go on, you tell me. It's sandalwood. You're right. Oh. Then two ladies walk by who are just guests. He says, do you smell the sandalwood? And then, he's here. That's only half of it. So I'm getting in charge. I'm walking around thinking, okay, Swami, where are you? Looking up in the tree. So then we go in, because now we're going to do a little chanting, my favorite part, yes. So Davy insists that I come up and sit in front with her and do chanting. Okay. So we're chanting, wait. Suddenly, I'm saying, the volume is too high for there's only 12 people in the room. I'm thinking, it sounds like enormous. 20 or 30 people are singing. I'm looking like this and looking like this. This doesn't make any sense at all. Well, there's a woman in the room who's exceedingly psychic, in the best sense of the word. And she comes up to me after the chanting is over. She says, oh, by the way, I smelled sandalwood. It was so strong. So I opened up my eyes. I was just chanting with my eyes. And I looked, and there were 20 other people in the room. I could see them, but nobody else could. And then I looked up front, and Swamiji was suspended above the altar, meditating with his eyes closed.
Wow.
She saw that?
Huh?
The lady saw that?
She saw that.
She saw that.
Yeah. And then when we finished the chanting, they all vanished. That's why I heard the volume, huh?
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Where was this one?
In our house.
You saw it at the house.
In Summit?
Out on Summit.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
I can't.
Wow.
Yeah, really. It was the grand opening of the center.
Was that
The
it?
first floor
Oh,
opened up.
good memory, I
Back when
forgot.
remember, we had the opening in 2003.
That's right,
That's
there
what-
you go.
yeah.
That was it, yeah.
Yeah.
So he attended. How about
It
that?
came.
Blessed it.
Wow.
And there was the day I was meant to be killed. We were driving in a rented car with the taxi driver, and I was in the front seat.
Oh, India.
Davey was in the back. Had been arranged by Swami Hari.
What
And
year?
I'm always leery of India drivers, because they don't use brakes, they use horns. Okay?
Yeah. Been there many times to see that.
So we're on the highway, and he's picking up speed, and I don't want to go 65 miles an hour in one of these things that are just shaking like crazy. It's a small car. And I'm telling him, slow down. He ignores me. I'm getting mad. Slow down. 'Cause I was about to turn the ignition off. Huh? We're coming to a curve, and off to the right is a demolished car to warn us about this curve, and he goes in at 65. And I know enough about driving, we're not gonna make it. And he swings into the opposite lane, and there's a car coming right at us. And I said, we're gonna hit. So I just got centered. We hit on. There was a slight curve, so we hit on, but also then glanced off, huh? Both of us went into the ditch at an angle. When we hit, I left my body. I was outside my body looking down. And a voice said to me, "You will not be hurt." And I knew it. I had no fears. All I got was a little shin bruise. So the karma came down to that. And, you know, I was furious, but I was so grateful to be alive. That overcame my anger. I was going to go beat the piece out of this guy. So I got up and I thought, I wonder how the other car is. So I squeezed out of the car, helped Davey out, and I ran down the road. And one of the men came out towards me, and we met and shook. He was the district attorney of that region. He said, "I want to see your driver because I'm filing a suit against him." And he did.
Did the driver get hurt?
None of us did.
Nobody.
And I don't know how that's possible, either car.
Hmm.
Because the DA looked at me and says, "We both should be dead." I said, "You're right, sir." He was puzzled.
Hmm.
What year was that?
Hmm?
What year was that?
I can't remember. One of the latter times, huh?
It was 99, wasn't it?
Something
Because
like
remember
that.
you came home and Davy was still shook up a bit.
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
more shook up than
Yeah.
but anybody would shake up, huh? I was just staggered by it, but the experience I remember mostly is this getting out of the body, huh? And knowing instantly you're safe,
Wow.
you will not be hurt. And then I knew somebody protects.
You wanted to come back?
Hmm?
You wanted to come back? I mean, did you
Oh, of
have a
course.
choice?
There's a lot of things I gotta explore yet. Yes. Oh boy. What a trip, huh? A slightly sad story. Good, but then sad. When we were building Glenview, there's an auditorium in one of the buildings, but it was an old building and it needed support. A couple started to come to our center, and I looked and I said, "I know that man. His name is Herb Martin. He was an Olympic 800-meter runner, a few years older than me, that I used to follow in college, and he ran for the University of Michigan." And it was. And I went off and introduced myself, and he was so taken, because I recognized him, huh? Well, he ran a steel company. He donated the steel girders to us. Well, he could write it off, but nevertheless, he was getting it. So we reinforced the building, now it was solid. Two stories. I'll tell you the bad one, then the good one, that followed on that. So anyway, Herb and I kind of hit it off, and occasionally he and his wife would come by and invite Davey and I out to their house. And one night he did. And she made a, what do you call it? It's in a pot, almost like a quiche, we'll say.
Souffle.
Yeah, something like that. I began to eat it and I said, "There's meat in here." Now, he knows I'm a vegetarian. And I could see, I looked over at his wife and I could see guilt feelings in her face. I picked up. And I looked at him and he looked very haughty. I said, is there meat in this? Yeah. So what? And I made one mistake. Somebody scolded me. I was polite. I should have gotten up and said, you have no right to treat me this way. So I went back to Swami and he really scolded me. He said, never, never let anybody do that to you again. It's going to take you 3 months to get that out of your system now. A year later, Herb had a massive heart attack. He was a young man of about 50. Somebody, I think the Davis again, came flying in. What an insult though. Now, good story about the opening of the center. At the front of the auditorium, there was some huge windows, about 12 feet high. There was a cathedral ceiling windows. And on the other side were magnolia trees. But this is March. They don't blossom in March.
Not in Chicago.
No, not in Chicago. No. The buds are very... So I remember the night before I walked all around the property, kind of looked at it and thinking, well, tomorrow's the big day. We invited the press in and they were coming. And my old friend Martin Greider and I were just walking around. I'll tell you about Marty. And so I, cased the place and, well, we'll be back tomorrow. We got there and Martin was waiting for me at the entrance. He said, hey, Jess, come here. I want to take you someplace. Okay. So we go sailing into the auditorium and the magnolia tree is in full blossom. Overnight. I said, Marty, I know. I can't believe it either. I was like you last night. Look at it. Come on, let's go to Swami. I said, Swami, what's going on? And he's got this big grin on his face. It's a gift from my master. That was his gesture of your work. This is how I bless it. I'll give you the magnolia tree. I like these guys, their style, Yeah, that was something. Now, Martin had a couple of interesting experiences. Martin Greider and his wife Colleen were told by Swamiji to buy a health food store in the area. It'll thrive for you, and it did. That way he had money to put away for his retirement. And Glenview was about less than a 15-minute ride from O'Hare Airport. And in those days, you could just almost drive up to the plane, So, Martin was also a good Lutheran, but he never let it interfere with his yoga. So one day, one of the board members at the church calls Martin up and says, hey, we finally got your Swami Rama to come and give a talk. Oh, when? This Friday night at 7. Really? Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, we've been trying to get him for about a year, and he said he finally could squeeze it in. So we're all looking forward to having him attend and give us a meeting at the church, which is about 5 minutes from Marty's house. Well, that's nice. So after he got off the phone, he went to work, and suddenly the phone rings again, and it's Swami Rama. And he says, Marty, will you take me to the airport on Friday? What time, Swamiji? Oh, 5 o'clock. I'm on my way to New York. Marty, just says he's going to talk at 7. He's got to leave the airport at 5. He says, okay, Swam, I'll pick you up. Okay, Mark, thanks. So Marty goes over. It's Friday, and he's thinking, what is going on? He's not going to say anything. He's just going to watch. So he goes over and picks up Swamiji. Oh, okay. And they drive to the airport. And they get there about 4:45. And at that time, you could walk your friends down to the airplane. Even get on the plane if you wanted to. They didn't care. So Martin deliberately stays with Swamiji right next to him and walks him all the way down to the plane. And I know exactly where it was in O'Hare. And he goes on with him. And he sees Swamiji get right into his seat, leaves, and just stands there and watches until that plane takes off. 10 minutes later. Then he goes back home. And he doesn't do a thing, doesn't make a phone call. Next morning, the phone rings. It's his friend from the church. Boy, your Swami was a great talker.
Did he need to travel by plane? Why did he do that?
I know.
Me too.
I should have asked him that. I was a little too timid. I said, Swami, you don't have to. You can just
Right,
teleport.
right.
He's at that level. You could teleport. I don't know why he did it, but I know he used to sleep a lot on the plane. That's why he can meditate a little bit. He was in a plane once flying to Switzerland, and one of the engines developed problems. Started sputtering, fire flying out, and everybody's terrified. Swami's and the woman next to him starts shouting at him. It's all your fault. It's the reason that you're just sleeping there. Aren't you worried? He says, why? The others are working. He goes, he was in an airport once in Delhi. And he was traveling with another Indian friend. And the two of them were going to, I think, fly to Europe. And the announcer said, flight so-and-so is ready to board. So the guy gets up and he says, well, come on, Swami. Swami about to get up and he can't move. He's fully conscious, but he can't move. Something is holding him to the chair. And the guy says, come on, Swami. And Swami says to him, Frank, listen carefully. Don't get on that plane. Oh, come on, Swami. I've got to get out of town. Frank, I don't lie to you. Don't get on that plane. He ignored him. Plane crash.
Oh my God.
Plane crash.
Was it the Davis holding?
I bet it was the Davis holding him there. Sure, because they got the word from the boys upstairs. Don't let the guy go.
Wow.
He was famous for doing this, Jim. We'd be watching TV. He liked Westerns for some reason. And if it got a little complicated, he'd say, Just, what's going on? And I got to explain it to him. And he'd be watching, and suddenly he'd say, Marilyn, call Jim in Fort Worth. Give me the phone. Jim, don't worry, your daughter will be okay. The operation will be good. Just do your meditation. You have my word. He would be scouting the students while he's watching TV.
Wow.
And seeing if something was bothering him, he'd say, call this zone, let me relieve them of their anxiety. Way back in the 70s, Swami was trying to get some promotion going because he wanted to start a center. He hadn't found a real place yet, so we used to go from farmhouse to storefront. And I'm trying to think of the suburb. I've got it on the tip of my tongue where it is. Just west of Chicago, northwest of Chicago. So he was lecturing one night in either a Unity church or something like that. And he's talking about meditation and consciousness, and suddenly, abruptly, he says, "Why are you saying that about me?" And everybody's yelling, "That's not true!" And he made a few more assertions like that, looking off. At that very moment, in another part of the city, there was a couple who were trying to start one of these unity churches, you know, little off-centered Christian church. And they were denouncing him so that people wouldn't go to him. They didn't want to lose the flock they were trying to gather. And he was tuning in. He was picking up all this stuff. "You shouldn't talk this way." No. He was still quite polite, I thought. And everybody's in the audience thinking, "What's he talking about?" You know. So the lecture was over, and he went home with the donations. Well, these people, you know, were quite satisfied with themselves until they got home. They walked in the house, and they were hit with an odor that almost made them vomit. Everywhere in the house was filled with it. They had to run out, literally run out of the house. And they called an exterminator. He couldn't even handle it because it was so uncomfortable. He had to call another exterminator. They couldn't find the source. They walked in with gas masks on. It was so bad. And they could not find the source.
They must have.
You got it. And so, the next day, it was still there. Next day, it was still there. Until finally one day, they said, "You don't suppose the remarks we made about this Indian fakir, hey, we can't get in our house, and nobody can find out what the source of it is." So they called up Swamiji and apologized. Walked back to the house. The odor was gone. Don't mess with the yogis. Boy, I love that one. He once fell out of a helicopter over the Alps. Yeah, he literally fell out of a helicopter. He fell 1,000 feet.
How many?
1,000. Hit the snow at an angle. Didn't get hurt. Got bruised, but didn't get hurt.
So, can you tell us about you allude to it in your book about how he had gotten hurt and was out of his body for so long, and his master pushed him back in, and he had to run to maintain his health?
Play tennis.
Play tennis, exercise, yes.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
tell us that story?
Somehow he hurt himself severely. And I can't remember exactly.
Didn't the
Was
light
he-
hit him?
Wasn't he meditating?
Yeah.
And he
I
was
was like
just
him.
Yeah, he fell or something, a light fell on top
The
of his
wind
head.
blew a light.
They gave him a concussion, huh? The brain was there. So it hit the body while he was meditating somewhere else, you know. And it was very serious. And his master said, "Okay, son, you gotta rebuild your health. I want you to play tennis 3 hours a day until I tell you to stop." So everybody started playing tennis. We had tournaments, we had everything going. Every day he was like that.
Did he ever talk to you, Swamiji, about,
Well, you might be mixing it up with the famous Baba.
mhm.
Okay, let me explain that story. There's a book that came out about 70 years ago in America called Autobiography of Yogi by Yogananda. And in there they talk about this Himalayan Baba that's 1,000 years old. Well, that's real exaggerated. Swamiji told me, the book's exaggerated. But the man they're talking about was a brother disciple with Swamiji's master. They were trained together under the same yogi. They're given exactly the same practices, they developed them, and when they came to their graduation, the master said, you two should now go in different directions. And that's how one went that way, one went the other. Now the people who followed Yogananda don't know that origin of the story. And Swamiji went to his grandmaster one day, who lives in Tibet.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah. And he stayed with him for a few days. Apparently he's a very jovial guy, with a terrific sense of humor. I'd like to meet him too. And so Swamiji learned what he could from him, and then went on. So he's been around a long time, this guy.
Does he have a scent?
Yes, but I don't know what
Don't know
it
what it
is.
is?
No, I don't know what it is.
Is he still in his body?
I have an intuition that he still is around, still in his body. He can keep his own gum as he wants to. He can change the molecular structure, the DNA, it's no problem. Two gentlemen made an appointment to see Swamiji, and Swamiji said, just come on over when these guys come, I want you to be in the audience. Okay. So the two came in, and I recognized one of them. His name was John West? He was a researcher in consciousness, examining all kinds of things, from things like what Pete Kelly would do, to Tesla, to all kinds. He was very intelligent and very curious and tenacious to search out. And they wanted to interview Swamiji. He said, fine. And he welcomed in, got chai for him. He said, what can I help you with? Well, we feel there's all kinds of disasters coming. Weather disasters and tsunamis and so on. So I said, yes. We want to make sure, can you confirm that these will happen? I said, yes, they will. And worse things. Well, put a meeting, come to a conclusion. That's all we wanted to know. And then they left. And Swamiji looked at me, because this was for my sake. He said, did you get that? All they wanted to know was the disasters, but they never asked, could we prevent them?
Exactly. What can we do?
He just wanted to make that impact upon me, but he was disappointed in these guys. He says, I'm very disappointed in them. They're brilliant men. They don't ask the right questions. Do you remember a book that came out from Harvard called The Relaxation Response? That was stolen from Swami by Dr. Benson. He refused to acknowledge that Swamiji taught him at all.
Herbert Benson?
Yep.
Really?
Swamiji taught him. And he stole it, ran with it, and never gave a single line of credit to Swamiji.
So what happened to
Yeah,
him?
what happened to him?
Where the Davis
Exactly.
I don't hear about him anymore. I don't know what happened to him. Ornish.
Yeah.
Oh,
Dean Ornish.
yes,
Dean Ornish.
Tell that
He
story.
was a thief. And I sensed that the moment he walked in, I said, this guy's going to keep your eye on him.
You heard him.
He visited us at Glenview. And he spent a few days pumping Valentine, the other doctors, watching how they work and got it all. Then he goes home and he's got this whole new holistic approach. He never gave a single credit to what he learned at us. And he made a reputation on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I took him apart in my book. I mentioned it in there, that he did. For having everything he could to run with it and claim it for himself.
But Davis didn't punish him though.
Well, we don't know.
Oh, he's not done yet. He's still doing
He's
a lot of
still
work.
here.
He's doing a lot of work.
Maybe he'll straighten out.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that Davies have their own evaluation, you know, they decide how much. He wasn't really hurting us, he just wasn't admitting
Right.
where he learned it, huh?
Right.
But Dave was just,
The body that Swamiji had was not his born body.
hey,
No.
When did he, oh,
As he was growing up,
that's
he told me he had a craving to learn how to slip into another body. Yogis can do this. And he badgered his master again and again to teach him. Oh, I gotta shut him up. Okay, we'll go find a body. And they did.
How old is
He's very young man,
him?
very young.
what
Under
happened to
20
his
pounds.
body?
And,
Wow.
So when he did that, when he took a different body, I think I heard the story before where did he go to the river and take the body out of the Ganges that was dead, that was floating down the river, and he chose that one, it was younger,
Mhm.
and that's how the body he took.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But they can't do that anymore.
That's what he said, it's so hard to find a good body anymore.
How
Everybody smokes and
How can
drinks.
they pass that on?
Well, some of these things we lose, he told me there's a lot of truths we've lost over the centuries.
Really?
Yeah,
And
there's
it
no
was-
receptivity. That's also the reason Swamiji wanted his body cremated, so people wouldn't make a fetish out of the parts, the way Catholics do sometimes. You know.
What did they do? I'm not aware of that.
Oh, they'll say they got the heart or they got the
Oh.
fingertip.
Right.
Or a little piece of bone,
Idolize.
and they put it in
Yeah.
little relics and.
Big toe in a
Exactly, make a
jar.
relic of it.
Right.
Praise it, put it up in a ciborium or something.
Yeah.
He said, I don't want that.
So these lost truths,
Yeah,
I went up there in the fifth pod in the cave.
ooh. Have to tell them that story now.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Yes, you do.
That's what's in there.
There's a classic document, it's called the Sutras. And the author is what is called Patanjali. Everybody thinks he's an individual, but it's a collection of authors over the centuries that have added. This book has 196 statements or aphorisms, divided into 4 chapters, or what they call padas. And this is the consummation of what yoga is all about. Raja Yoga. Swamiji went through every chapter and performed every single accomplishment that's listed there. Some of them took 3 months, but he went through and he mastered every one of them. Wait, gets better. Then his master got together with some of his cronies, that's the word I would use, and said, let's have an interesting experiment here. So he waited until finally Swamiji said, visited his master one day, and he says, there must be more I can learn. And Swami said, yes, there is. Would you like to visit some of my colleagues? Yes. Okay. I will notify them in my own way. And here's a list of all my colleagues who live in the Himalayas. These are men up to about the stature of Swamiji's master, okay? And he's to go to each one and see if they could teach him something in addition to what he's learned already. He's a young man now. So Swami, he's all excited, oh boy, because this may take you a year to get through all these guys. Oh, okay, I know you will. You'll be excited. Of course, you probably embarrass me all the time, but nonetheless, here's the list. They know you're coming, but I want you to remember 3 things. 1, don't get angry. Don't lose your temper. Okay, come on, I gotta get going. Sit down. 2, don't accept gifts. Don't get cluttered up with gifts. Yeah, I hear you. Come on, I gotta get going. 3, if you lose your composure, get angry, sit down and ask yourself, why? Why should I be upset? Yeah, I got it all. Thanks. See you around, Master. Boom, out he went. First man he comes to, he's got the list, he's all excited. And the man is sitting up on the hill, meditating, absolutely still. And Swami walks up, naturally impressed with himself, bows down and says, Namaste, I'm here. And the man just keeps meditating. Excuse me, I'm Swami Rama. You know, my master sent me to you. I'm here. I beg your pardon. He starts shouting at him. Keeps there. He goes over. I said into his ear. Still, both ears. Swami's ready to strike him, huh? He's just he looks for a log or a branch, probably a white birch. He goes over and he puts it under the guy's thigh. Tilt him. The branch breaks. Swami's sweating, he's upset, he's swearing, and he comes over in front of him, and the man opens up his eye and kicks him. And Swami was at an angle, and he tilts backwards, and he goes all the way down the hill that the man was sitting on top of, scraping his body with rocks, slivers going in. Finally, when he lands solidly, he's got a bump in his head, he's scarring, a little blood showing. He is so furious. He swears, and he looks for a stick to come up and beat the hell out of him. And he charges up the mountain, and he's just about to hit him, and the man opens his eyes and says, Namaste. And it startles Swamiji, and he says, I can't teach anybody who loses their temper, as your master said. Go away. And he closes his eyes again. Want to hear the rest?
Oh, sure.
Next man he comes to. He's hanging out like this. Swamiji, come on in. So I'm saying, my God, who is this? Come on into my cave. And he walks in. There's Persian rugs, drapes, gold pieces, silver goblets, paintings, genuine oil paintings. And Swamiji's eyes go to this lapis lazuli vase. And he's never seen anything so gorgeous. And the man says, oh, Swamiji, you like it? It's yours. Well, thank you. But didn't your master say not to take gifts? Damn. I'm sorry I can't teach students who don't listen to their master. After you gave your word. See you around, son. He failed 90 times. 90. Several months later, it's all over. He was complete failure. Complete. He is so forlorn and morose. He almost wants to kill himself. He feels so chagrined for embarrassing his master, unable to control himself, given every opportunity, a total, absolute failure. He doesn't know what to do. So he decides, I got nowhere to go. I'll just have to sneak back into the monastery and hang out low. So one night, he knows the routine in the monastery when the monks go and do their yoga nidra and all that stuff. So he's edges his way in to the main hall where his master sleeps sitting up. He achieved that. And he just stays in the center all night long, right? By himself. The Swami's edging himself along the edge to try to get to his cell. And he disturbs some rocks and they tumble. And the master says, "Who's there?" Silence. Ooh. He tightens up. "Is that you, my son?" "Oh, shoot." "Well, come here. I haven't seen you in quite a while." So he walks over. "How was it?" "I was a failure." "Really?" "I lost my temper all the time." "Did you now?" I accepted gifts." "Really?" "I went down, introspect, and find out what's the problem. I'm not worthy to be your son." "Oh, really?" So he's sitting there biting his lip, and his master says to him, "Well, son, tell you what." He gets his full attention now. And he says, "Why don't we start all over? And you do it again, but this time, be patient." Meaning with yourself. He did. He made it. But then the fun started. What he didn't know, even though he failed, they invested it into his subconscious because they had the power. Because he was willing. You can't force something into the unconscious, even if you're a Swami Rama, unless there's a willingness. Huh? But he was open underneath all that monkey business of his. And so when he went on the second time, he went much faster because they already put the grounding in him. Now what they did is they literally used him as a mainframe. And when he came back, he had so many creative ideas that went beyond the sutras, the Patanjali sutras. He put together new experiments, which he demonstrated. It became the 5th chapter. For the first time in the world, it has never been released. He showed it to me, but it was in Sanskrit. Damn it. And he said to me, "Just someday we'll release this. Someday." He had it with him, and he showed me the book where it was recorded, all the experiments he did, and he said, "I'm taking this back to the monastery for the archives." His monastery is over 5,000 years old in this cave. Two things. One, if you were told where it was and you went there, you wouldn't see it unless they let you see it. They can disguise it on the outside. You wouldn't see anything but branches or a wall or a mountain. Huh? Now, if you got inside, you stayed with them, they would walk you to a room, and in that room, they have archives going back thousands of years, showing all the experiments, how yoga started, where the mistakes were, what could happen here, how this might hurt your heart or this might affect your kidney. So they would, when you did the experiments to catch up, they had a red mark, Swamiji told me, and don't go past this point because you'll hurt yourself. We've tested this, we know that the human body cannot hurt himself unless you'll abuse your nature. So they have it all there, all the experiments they have ever done, and now they've added this 5th chapter.
Wow. Is this his master's cave?
Yep. Now, he's left his body permanently. He did it while Swamiji was in Honesdale. He was very upset for about 10 days.
Swamiji?
Yeah. Because he told him, son, I'm going on now. You take over. Now, where does he go? Don't ask me.
But you've been there.
Who?
You've been there.
But in a vision, no?
Ah, okay.
But Swami, you were really there. We took you out of your body and you went. They showed me the room of jewels, Jim.
Yeah, you told me
Remember that
I just
one?
didn't know where the...
Yeah, that's centuries old, full of, you know, it's a country's ransom. He said, yeah, you were there, we took you there. But he did show me his 10-pound emerald. 10-pound. You know what that's worth?
Oh, my God.
It was that big. That's what it was like. I lifted it. I held it in my hands. It was that round. There it was. It was in a bank vault in Rishikesh, the Gale.